Well, for more on this, let's now cross live to Mahdi Darius Nazemroya. He's an expert in the Middle East and Central Asia. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Well, as we've just heard in that report, energy prices are soaring due to the unrest across the Middle East. What further impact could this have on Europe's already struggling economy, do you think?
We're seeing the world economy becoming remodeled. This includes the European continent and specifically the members of the EU. They themselves are part of this project, and they're driving themselves further into the orbit of the United States. They are backing away from Russia, which is an actual dependable and stable form of energy for Europe. But they themselves, when they get involved in such operations as the ones in Iraq or in Libya, know very well strategically what the outcome will be, and the European leaders are actually pushing Europe into the lap of the United States. So we're going to see Europe becoming remodeled and integrated further with the United States.
But isn't this hike, sorry just to interrupt, isn't this hike in energy prices a knee-jerk reaction? Because after all, if we look at what's happening there in Libya, despite the disruption and the turmoil there, the rebels have actually created their own central bank and a new national oil company. So doesn't that suggest that they're actually getting their act together?
To an extent, it is a knee-jerk reaction, but I'd like to also point out that the rebels' oil supplies have been disrupted by the Libyan military as well, and the pipelines as well have been attacked, and facilities have been attacked in Libya. But the Europeans know very well, specifically the EU, know very well what direction that this is taking. And yes, it's more than a knee-jerk reaction, because it's strategically, it helps justify their new economic reform policies, their austerity measures. When prices go up, a lot of things in the economy have to change. And instead of moving and cooperating with Russia, they're actually moving away from Russia, which is very ironic and against their own interests.
Let's just talk about the situation in Libya at the moment. Many are saying this is a stalemate. NATO hasn't achieved what it really should have done. We're learning that that international contact group recently formed in London is setting up a trust fund to channel assets to the Libyan rebels. We're also getting reports from the rebels themselves that NATO is actually supplying them with weapons at the moment. Now, surely, because of this deadlock, isn't it right that NATO should be bending the rules set out by that initial UN resolution to actually bring a deadlock to, bring an end to this deadlock and end this conflict and end the deaths of civilians there in Libya?
What we're talking about here is the politics of division. NATO and the United States, and as well as the EU, are not about unifying or ending the deadlock. What they're doing in Libya is actually insidious. It's a gradual, subtle, it's a gradual and slow, progressive, harmful process.
But how can you say that? So are you actually saying they're trying to prolong this campaign? I mean, doesn't that contradict what we heard yesterday from Sarkozy, Obama and Cameron saying, look, what we've got to do is actually now get rid of Gaddafi. That is the main aim.
They're definitely trying to prolong this complaint. They're the ones who speak in contradictory tone. Mr. Obama says that we're not going to send troops. Then he says we're going to send troops. The Italians say we're not going to get involved. Then we're going to get involved. NATO's not going to go. NATO's going to send troops. The spokesperson for NATO says we won't send troops. The military commander of NATO says we're going to send a stabilization mission. They can't be trusted. Like, I have to be blunt. This is all they contradict themselves.
But just to explain quickly why. Many people will be thinking, well, why are you saying this after all this effort and energy that NATO have been putting into this, and of course with help from the US? Why would they want this to be a prolonged conflict in Libya and not remove Gaddafi as soon as possible? It doesn't make sense, does it?
It does. I'm glad you asked this, because people have a right to know. They are prolonging the conflict because the longer this conflict takes, the more entrenched the Transitional Council will be in their services. What they've been doing is they've been playing a teeter-tottering game. They've been helping the rebels, then ceasing help. Helping the rebels, and then reducing help. They want to divide the country and weaken it. This is why I'm saying this is an insidious process that's taking
place. Just quickly, we haven't got much time. We did talk about Russia earlier. I just want your quick comments about Russia's potential role here in bringing some sort of stability to Libya. Just briefly, could Russia be playing a role here?
Yes, Russia and the former Soviet republics can definitely play a role. In 2010, the Secretary General of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, which is headquartered in Moscow, and the Secretary General of the United Nations made an agreement that sets the legal and political framework into place for an end to NATO's so-called peacekeeping monopoly. Russia and the Collective Security Treaty Organization members, which include Kazakhstan, Belarus, Armenia, and countries like Tajikistan, can all send peacekeepers into Libya. You can't have a combatant, you can't have parties that are combatants become peacekeepers like NATO did in Yugoslavia. They were amongst the combatants, then they sent peacekeepers in. This is preposterous. This is why you need countries like Russia, China, Algeria to send peacekeepers in, not Germany, not Italy, not Britain, not France, because they are not impartial parties. They are biased. They're combatants.
Okay, Marty, we'll have to leave it there. Marty Darius Nazemroaya joining us live there in Ottawa in Canada. Thanks very much for your input here on RT. Thank you.